And guess what day it is?
Hump
Day! And it's also
Sabaton Wednesday.
Wednesday,
Sabaton Wednesday. Yay. So we were having a discussion. His name is
Joachim.
Joaquin.
No, it's Joachim.
Joaquin.
All right, how about we tell them what we're going to be watching
Okay,
today.
what we're watching today is we're watching the Sabaton History Channel. This is number 76. And it's called Uprising, about the 1944 Warsaw Uprising. We're going to watch this first, and then we're going to go right over and do the music video, kind of tie them in together. It's going to be a little bit longer, but we've had some Sabaton fans that said they didn't mind. So we hope you don't mind. And again, as always, we'll get back to night wishes. We always do, right? Okay,
Yep.
So here we go with Joaquin. Joaquin's fixing to talk
His
about.
name is not Joaquin.
Takes our money. He can
Hey,
have our.
stop.
Okay. Here we go.
When the struggle is so monumental that you know you will not win, you know you will not survive, and you know you will not even make great change, and yet you still make that fight.
And our song Uprising is about that.
This is Sabaton History, and I'm Spartacus Olson. I'm sitting in for Indy today because the current pandemic has left many of us stuck in different places over the past months and thrown our recording schedule around a bit. But I'm also the host and lead writer of the subseries War Against Humanity on our World War II channel, where I cover resistance, partisan warfare, war crimes, and crimes against humanity during the Second World War, which are also the topics of Sabaton's song Uprising. Okay, so it's July 1944. The Eastern Front is in motion. German Army Group Center has collapsed in the face of repeated offensives by the Soviet First Belarusian Front, now striking deep into Poland. It is widely expected that capturing Warsaw will be the next thing on the list of the Red Army objectives.
All right, guys. Gotta pay the sponsors.
With the end of the German occupation literally on the horizon, the leaders of the Polish underground resistance, the Armia Krajowa, or Home Army, meet for a secret meeting. After nearly 5 years of occupation, humiliation, and suffering, the resistance of Warsaw is eager to rise up. Radio calls are made to the exiled Polish government in London, who in turn appeal to the British and American authorities for help. The time has come. The Poles will now fight to take back their capital. However, the Western Allies are hesitant to promise help outright. They welcome resistance against the Germans, sure, but they do have logistical problems with the fight in France and Italy in full swing at the same time. But mostly, this is the Soviet theater of war, and they don't want to step on any toes, so the Poles will have to rely on Soviet cooperation first and foremost. However, the position of the Home Army towards the Soviet Union is one of uncertainty and mistrust, as memories of the pact between Hitler and Stalin that had swallowed and divided Poland are still pretty fresh. If the Poles do nothing, then the Red Army will overrun Poland and the government in exile will be powerless in the newly communist Poland. But if the rising is successful, then Warsaw will be in the hand of democratic Poles. Then they hope that the autocratic Soviet Union can't simply impose its will on Poland, so the Poles have everything to win and everything to lose. However, the Germans still have strong forces in the region. If the resistance rises up before the Wehrmacht there can be wholly engaged with the Red Army, the Germans would most certainly crush them. So the Polish Home Army has to wait for the last possible moment when the Red Army is on the outskirts of Warsaw. Then, with logistical help from the West and cooperation from the Red Army, the insurgents could drive the Germans out of the city. At least one of those two last things has to happen, or the Rising is doomed.
Do you remember when the Nazis was the rule on Poland? 1939, and the Allies burned away. From the underground rose a hope of freedom as a whisper. Sitting in despair, but they never lost their faith.
Back in February, the resistance fighters outside of Warsaw had made contact with Soviet Marshal Rokossovsky's spearheads. Rokossovsky agreed to principal tactical cooperation, but refrained from promising anything beyond that. And when the Home Army then begins revealing itself to the Soviets, they are greeted with unexpectedly hostile behavior. The available reports of the NKVD, the Soviet Interior Ministry and Secret Police, paint a clearer picture of the situation. They call the Polish Home Army illegal formations, rebels, and bandits. They are white Poles allied to Great Britain and are an old enemy. See, although they currently fight the same enemy, Polish nationalism is contradictory to Stalin's plan. And of course, it's only been a bit more than 20 years since the Poles won the Polish-Soviet War, and one of the people really responsible for the loss of the Battle of Warsaw back then was Joseph Stalin. The NKVD makes it clear that they will not allow any irregular or partisan actions in the rear of their armies. Soon, any Polish resistance fighters caught behind the front line is arrested, disarmed, and removed. By July, more than 30,000 Home Army fighters have been interned by the Red Army. Inside Warsaw, the Home Army is caught between the desire for action and the need for caution. The atmosphere in the city is tense. Pole and German alike feel that something is about to go down. By August, the Soviet front draws close, and while the Wehrmacht prepares to halt Soviet attacks across the Vistula, the Home Army decides to risk everything. On the night of August 1st, groups of armed young men break curfew and gather throughout the city. At 0500, they strike. German trucks are bombed and German patrols gunned down. They storm the railway office, the post office, and the major power station. Most importantly, they capture storehouses, taking German helmets and weapons, camouflage jackets, and even SS uniforms. Wow. To distinguish themselves from their enemy, they wear their white and red armbands or eagle insignias. Around 2,500 insurgents fall the first day, and many civilians are caught in the crossfire. But although they are not able to make the police district or the airport, the day is considered a success. They have been able to free many Jews from the SS concentration camp known as Goose Farm, and even managed to capture a tank. Large parts of the city are now under their control, so they must continue the fight until help arrives. They inform London by radio that the fight for Warsaw has begun. On the night of the 4th, the first British bombers are spotted over the skies of Warsaw. The Poles rejoice as crates filled with weapons and supplies are parachuted in. They have not been forgotten by their allies. The Germans, however, are now reacting as well. Anti-insurgency specialist SS Obergruppenführer Erich von dem Bach arrives in Warsaw. He reports back to SS Commander Heinrich Himmler the real scale of the rising, and Himmler flies into a violent rage. He orders von dem Bach to not only crush the insurgency, but to obliterate Warsaw. The home of Polish history and culture is to be liquidated once and for all. The Wehrmacht, however, had their hands full fighting the Red Army, so Himmler orders his own SS troops to Warsaw. What arrives at that city is an assortment of some of the most notoriously undisciplined, criminal, and murderous SS units the Nazis have to offer. The SS Brigade Dielewanga, the Russian SS Rona Brigade, Cossack and Azerbaijani auxiliary regiments, several Einsatzgruppen and military police units, and for a few days, these units take Himmler's orders literally. Fighting the insurgency almost becomes a secondary objective as they kill every man, woman, and child in sight and systematically set their homes on fire. Tens of thousands of people are slaughtered. It becomes so bad, with so many reports of rapes and looting, that von dem Bach has officers shot to try and rein in the men. He has to issue orders to not summarily shoot women and children anymore. The city becomes an urban battlefield. Loudspeakers urge the insurgents to give up before they are all killed. The Luftwaffe and German artillery bomb the rebel districts, but the insurgents prove resilient. They hide in Warsaw's deep cellars and use the destroyed buildings to entrap the enemy. They lure them into killing zones where snipers and grenadiers await them. The ruined city denies the SS their numerical advantage, and after 2 weeks of fighting, neither side has that advantage. The Poles fight from the street barricades and fortified cellars connected by trenches and sewers. Women and children work tirelessly in underground kitchens, hospitals, and makeshift workshops. Days turn to weeks. By the end of August, though, even as the spirit of the insurgency is still high, the outside world is eerily quiet.
One researcher spent 20 years investigating the lives of men who lived up to 120 years.
Women, men, and children fight. They were dying side by side, and the blood they shed upon the streets was a sacrifice willingly paid.
Even contemporary German sources expect the Soviets to try to link up with the insurgents as quickly as possible. The Red Army advances towards the Baltics and the Balkans, but not on the Vistula. Winston Churchill is among the first to make the assumption that this pause during the most critical moment of the Rising, where any Soviet attack might have tipped the scale, is deliberate. Rokossovsky stands just 20 kilometers away from Warsaw. How come, since the end of July, not one Soviet aircraft has been seen flying over Warsaw? No drop has been made, no shelling of German positions. Did Stalin condemn the Rising to its fate? For historians, it's impossible to know Stalin's exact inner motives. Many of the records regarding Poland are still sealed tightly in Russian archives. Reliable intelligence was certainly scarce, and the reports from the NKVD portray the insurgency as a reckless adventure by a gang of criminals and bandits. Polish nationalism has no place in Stalin's great strategy. The British will cancel their airlifts as well because of the inefficiency of sending planes from Italian air bases 1,300 kilometers away. There are actually over 200 U.S. Air Force planes stationed in Poltava, but Stalin denies them airspace over Poland. Inside Warsaw, losses are heavy on both sides. The Germans have been forced to reinforce the SS with crack units like the Hermann Göring Panzerdivision, and slowly but surely the insurgents are pushed back into the city center. Fighting continues unabated in the cemeteries, the suburbs, and the former ghetto, but by September the situation grows desperate. They have held out far longer than expected, but they cannot win a battle of attrition. Down to a quarter of their fighting strength, and with food and medical supplies dwindling, negotiations for surrender begin. But just then, in mid-September, the Soviets suddenly attack the eastern outskirts of Warsaw. It is General Berling's army, made up of Polish communists and collaborators, who attack the German garrisons. Soviet planes now drop supplies, and Soviet artillery shells the city. All surrender negotiations are broken off, and the Polish spirits rise. Volunteers swim the Vistula to greet their allies. But they never return. Reports soon reach the Home Army that those volunteers are arrested and interrogated about their holdouts and their officers, and some are even tortured and shot. Berling's attempt is not the long-awaited Soviet offensive. Rokossovsky does not move, and the insurgency is doomed. On September 18th, a large fleet of flying fortresses make one last supply run. But it is too late. Nearly all of the crates parachute into German territory as the insurgents are by now pressed into a small area in the city center. Left with only a handful of blocks and streets, the Home Army has no real choice. They can either surrender to the Nazis, who will probably murder them, or try to escape to the Soviets, who will likely turn on them as well. The final shot of the uprising is fired on October 2nd. It has lasted 63 days. Civilians and insurgents alike are arrested and sent to concentration camps. The ruins of the western part of the city are now once again occupied by the Germans. In the east, just across the river, the Soviets stand and watch. Poland, once again, is divided between the Germans and the Soviets, but not forever, for the old words ring true. Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła, póki nie śpiemy. Poland is not yet lost as long as we live.
Underground whispers of freedom. 1944. Help that never came. Calling Warsaw, city at war. Voices from underground, whispers of freedom. Rise, stop, and hear the call. This story calling to you.
You know, we've talked about a lot of stuff from different songs of yours that have to do with the Second World War, because you have a bunch of them and stuff. And you've met people and relatives, like Audie Murphy's relatives and stuff, and Helen Back and stuff. Did you guys ever meet anybody that actually had anything to do with the uprising itself?
Yeah, several actually. I remember the first couple of people we met. Obviously, we're talking about people who are really old,
Yeah.
quite possibly dead now. This was back in 2010. A lot got lost in translation. It was an emotional experience, but it was really hard because, you know, speaking through a translator at a museum, we were at the Warsaw Uprising Museum, but a few days later, we were still in Poland then, we heard of a woman who had fought in the uprising. Her name was Anna.
Wow.
And she had moved to Sweden, actually, after everything happened there.
At the end of the war?
At the end of the war.
She came there.
But it was really one of those moments that I will never forget in my life, because we were speaking Swedish.
Yeah.
Old people in Poland, for obvious reasons, aren't very good at English.
Yeah, they're not very good at Swedish in general.
Yeah,
either.
but she lived in Sweden from, I guess, somewhere in the 40s until 2006, I think it was, or
And then
2009.
went back.
So she just recently moved back when her husband died, I think it was.
Okay.
And speaking with her and her experiences, and it is so far away from the action movies and everything. I mean, her main role in the uprising, being a young woman or a young girl maybe, wasn't, you know, frontline combat.
Right.
But of course, she had to. They captured a tank, a German tank. I can't remember if it was a Leopard or something. They actually captured it.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. And the story she would tell, it is nothing like the movies.
I'm very sorry. For doing business.
Her stories of, delivering messages through the sewers and how cramped and tiny it was. I have no idea how it was, but at the Warsaw Uprising Museum in Warsaw, they have sort of reconstructed those sewers so you can walk through them. And they start out pretty big, then they get pretty small, and you can, you know, try and, you know, how they would move.
See how
troops
you
and
could get, how
messages.
far you could do it?
Oh man, if you're even slightly claustrophobic, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Her tale how such an obviously extreme circumstances, living under those circumstances, and still life goes on.
That's, you know, I'm glad that you put that out here, that it's not that the Warsaw Uprising or any war or any combat that you sing about and that we talk about is not what it looks like in the movies, because I think people misunderstand that. And I think people lose track of that this is the stuff we talk about on this channel and the stuff that they sing about. It's very interesting, and it's important to remember these things for a variety of reasons, but it's not cool.
Nope.
It's not what you see in the movies. The movies, they want you to watch the story, great, but they also have to give you entertainment value, and war is not entertainment value. It's not cool.
No,
you
it's so much boredom. I mean, how fun would it be a movie about World War I? Somebody getting sick in a trench, going back to a hospital, going back to the trench, taking one step up, dead.
And that's your video game, and that's 3 weeks you've been playing the game, and that's your first time over. Well, I mean, think of even some people we've covered, like Simo Heihe, right? I mean, he would spend days iced in with ice in it to make a sing. There's nothing exciting or romantic about that. It is specifically mechanical, and it is specifically you can overcome the boredom. I couldn't. I'd have to pee. I would. I'd have to pee at some point, you know.
But in a sense, I mean, I'm not comparing a warrior's life to what we are doing.
Yeah.
However, there is one similarity. What we are doing as musicians is sort of the Hollywood version, because what you guys see is us going on stage or hearing the album.
Yeah.
You're not seeing the rehearsals, you are not seeing the songwriting, the retakes, all of that. I'm by no means drawing the comparison, but it's a natural thing.
No,
I mean, no movie would be interesting if it was like the trenches in World War I, I think.
You're right, but people, especially with World War I and World War II, people say, "What's the most realistic video game?" Or what do you think would be the most realistic? The most realistic video game is that you spend 3 or 4 weeks hastily training as an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old who lied about his age in England and stuff, and you get sick and you meet some new people and you hurt yourself, and then you go and you get another 3 weeks and you rotated through the lines and stuff, and you get killed in the first 20 seconds.
Yep.
And then you have to start the game all over, and you've just spent like 8 weeks playing that character, and that's as far as you got.
And you're lucky because you get to start over.
That's true.
They didn't.
Wow. Well, you know what? This episode, it is a hard-hitting episode. And to her, to Anna, and to all the other Annas, and all the other uprisings that were literally hopeless situations, but were still illustrative of the depths of the human spirit. Way to go.
All right, everyone, thank you very much for watching, and thank you so much for the support with the community. All the Patreons, everyone who's helping, sharing this. We really love doing this, and thanks to you, we can keep on doing it. So keep on doing what you do, and we will keep on doing what we do. Thank you.
Okay, guys, we're going to go right into the music video because that one was so long, and then we'll comment afterwards. Is that okay?
I'm really excited to see the music video after hearing about all this.
Me too. So here we go.
When the Nazis was the rule on Poland, 1939, and the Allies turned away. From the underground rose a hope of freedom as a whisper. City in despair, but they never lost their faith. Women, men, and children fight, they were dying side by side. And the blood they shed upon the streets was a sacrifice willingly paid. Warsaw, city at war, voices from underground, whispers of freedom. 1944, help that never came. Calling Warsaw, city at war, voices from underground, whispers of freedom. Rise up and hear the call, history calling to you. accordance with the old traditions. 1944, still the Allies turned away, fighting street to street in a time of hope and desperation. Did it on their own, and they never lost their faith. Women, men, and children fight, they were dying side by side, and the blood they shed upon the streets was a sacrifice willingly paid. Warsaw, city at war, voices from underground, whispers of freedom. 1944, help that never came, calling Warsaw, city at war, voices from underground, whispers of freedom. Rise up and hear the call, history calling to you, Warszawa.
Well, how interesting and tragic at the same time, of course.
Yeah.
Um,
So
I learned a lot. You probably learned some things.
I learned a
but-
lot because I didn't do a lot of war history. Well, not World War II. I did a lot of history in European history, hundreds of years before that. So I do know that Poland has always kind of been in the center and always been wanted territory, and they've been fought over. That territory has been fought over for 1,000 years, maybe. I mean, for a long time. Even before it was Poland, the whole area has been fought over from the east and by the west. And so, I love what he said about in the beginning about war is not a video game, and war is not a movie, and you can't capture the horrors of war in a movie. I will say that the only movie that I've seen in the last 20, 30 years that even came close was Saving Private Ryan. And there was a whole intense bunch of action and death at the very, very beginning of that to signify what happened on D-Day when they invaded France. But even then, I mean, like he said, I think it was very, very smart. I guess I mean very, very smart and intelligent about how train. 17 years old, you train. Then maybe you get sick. Maybe you have to go back. Maybe you train some more, and then you go in a trench and you die in 20 seconds after you get there. I mean, same thing with World War II. They train, and then they leave on boats from England to go to France. They step off the boat and they get mowed down. It's over.
I
The
mean,
war's over.
yeah, over. And then also, I think, I don't know, but I think that there'd be a sadness like that there was no glory in their death. However, I mean, you and I know any death in battle like that you don't have, it doesn't have to be a big thing for it to be a huge sacrifice.
Yes, and
It doesn't have to be a big dramatic movie like,
that's right.
yeah.
That's right. So the kids that went over there, 17 to 20s, that went over there and just died immediately, we hold up their sacrifice, right?
Mhm.
We're a lot of the reason that Europe, large parts of Europe are safe and democratic is because of what they gave in World War I and World War II. And but I tell you what about, and this is a weird thought, but I think weird things anyway. What about the German mothers who lost sons? They were obviously on the wrong side, right? But Germans lost millions of kids, right? Did their mothers cry? Sure they did. So war is, whether on the wrong side or the right side, sometimes only history will tell us if you're on the wrong side or the right side, right? And so, I don't know, those things really, I love it because I love history. I love the part about how they were able to liberate a Jewish concentration camp. We talked about that, about there were a lot of Jews in Poland and a lot of Jews in that particular area, and the fact that they were able to liberate them. I'm sad to say that I had forgotten that they actually lost that uprising. So,
But I think the uprising in and of itself, like you said, it gave a spirit to other countries to be able to,
and so
the story will live on.
Yes. Yep.
But I mean, I say that, but then I didn't know this story till today, and I'm 55. Possibly, and I don't know, over in Poland, it's much different, and people are much more aware of the uprising, probably. But like I said, or I have said in the past, I do not have a strength for history. I really, really struggled in school with history, which is why, since I'm a visual learner and a tactile learner, watching these Sabaton History Channel videos and then listening to the music, it like hits all the sweet spots for me because I get the visual and then I get the music, the auditory. And anyway, what did you think of the song?
I thought, I love Sabaton and I love the song and I love the fact that it's, the words are very straightforward. Warsaw City of War, right? In 1944, this is what's going on. It is not lyrical. It's not necessarily made up. It's history set to music. And I love it. And plus I love the band. I just do. I love Sabaton. And of course, we always have the disclaimer, we came to Sabaton through Nightwish, and we love Nightwish, and we love everybody else that we've heard. But I will tell you, Sabaton, what a great, it was for me, it was like
Wolfman's like, I think Wolfman's higher on the list of Sabaton fans than me because I love Sabaton. He's like, whoop. And I've got other groups that I have that.
because thank God for them because to me, because now those guys are young guys. I mean, I'm 60 years old. Those guys are at least half my age, right? But they're bringing back awareness, and they're not even really from those areas. They're right. They're Nordic mainly, I think, and so they're bringing back awareness of things that happened in the wars. People have forgotten about, right?
And then
the people forgot about World War I. They had no idea who fought in it, where it was fought, what it was about. World War II is starting to become that way. And then bands like Sabaton come along and they make these amazing videos and they have their own history channel. Thank God for them, I think.
Yeah, and thank God they're spreading around the United States. They're getting a bigger fan base here because it's a great way for people to learn, like me. I mean, I admit I should know this. I don't, but I now
Now
do.
you do. Now you do, right? And so,
Is on
yeesh.
Hump Day.
What day is it?
Sabaton
Sabaton Wednesday.
Wednesday.
She just likes to tickle me, and I'm a fat old man. I don't think I.
Stop.
Anyway, listen, if you like this video, because it was extra long, so we're going to cut out of it. There's so much more we could say about this video with the history and then the music video, but we're going to let you guys do your own research, and we'll do some of our own as well. We'll be back with another Nightwish reaction video very soon. But Sabaton Wednesday, God bless you. If you like the video, hit like. If you like us, the dogs, whatever else, hit subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications when we do more. Share and comment down below, baby.
I've posted 3 video shorts of the dogs in like 1 week.
Yeah.
I need to slow down.
I don't know. I sent you one today that I think you need to put on.
Okay. All right. I might do it. Well, listen, we again are Susu, Boo Boo, Buster, and the Wolfman.
Wolfman.
We're signing off. We will see you next time. Be blessed.
And don't hurt anybody.